Night in Houston, Texas, H-Town. Texas, my home state, the best state in the United States, arguably. There's some negatives, but we have a very, very good main event. High skill level fight. A former title contender and title holder in Sean Strickland, the man, the myth, the legend, and a rising contender and possibly rising star, an old friend of mine, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. And in today's video, we will be going from the bottom of the card to the top of the card, and I will be making my picks and predictions for each UFC matchup for this weekend's fight night. And before we get into the picks, preview, and predictions, go ahead, smash that like button, because you're going to love this video. Subscribe, Seen All MMA. I know MMA, man, and I really want to be an MMA YouTuber. So please subscribe. That would be super epic. And let's go ahead and talk about how I'm doing today's picks. I was looking at this card, watching some fights for some of the guys on the card, and I was like, man, this is a sleeper card. There are probably going to be some good fights on this card that you maybe wouldn't think would be that exciting or entertaining. But they're also very interesting matchups. Awkward matchups, if you will. For example, Jeff Neal and Uros Medic. That kind of came out of nowhere. And for a few of these fights, I don't even know who I'm picking yet. So I decided I'm just going to go straight off the cuff for this video. Not going to get too detailed into like where I'm thinking technically each guy or gal may be at skill-wise. But I'm just going to pick. I'm going to go off the gut. I'm going to go off the cuff. I'm going to rip them off. I'm going to rip these picks off. And hopefully we go undefeated. My picks for 2026 so far have been pretty dang good. So, I'm just going to go with my gut feeling. And I think that's a wonderful idea. Because I know the UFC. I know MMA. Starting off, I usually maybe wouldn't talk about a fight like this if you've watched some of my previous videos. But this is easy, man. Carly Judice, somewhat skillful. Has some actual technique. She doesn't go out in a WMMA fight and just hee-haws her way to victory. She doesn't go out there to spar. She goes out there to fight. And I'd say she's a pretty well-rounded kickboxer for the women's flyweight division. Juliana Miller, on the other hand, is a grappler. However, on the feet, she is atrocious. She goes out there like it's a sparring match, and she has no real takedown threat, decent submissions, but she is not good. 8 fights in her career, which is one more than Judice. However, I think she's only had 3 of them in the UFC, and I don't think she's won one. She's abysmal. Carly Judice has potential. Carly Judice, by decision. Classic WMMA. Moving on up the card in a featherweight matchup between Jordan Fruitcake Levitt and Yadir the Human Problem. Davel. This is easy for me. I'm going Yadir Davel. He is much more physical than Jordan Levitt, even though Jordan Levitt is underrated in the physical realm of an MMA fight. Jordan Levitt has good sticky grappling, a submission threat. However, on the feet, he lacks very much skill-wise. Yadir Davel has decent fundamentals on the feet. He is strong, explosive, decently quick, and on the ground, he is an enforce his will, impose his game plan on the ground. Very good, strong double and single leg takedowns, a strong pressure grappling. I would say he's kind of like a featherweight Benoit Saint Denis, if you will, just a little bit quicker, I would say, but he is a featherweight all the same. And I think this is Yadir Davel, first round finish, whether it's on the feet or on the ground. I think his pressure and physicality will overwhelm Jordan Levitt early. And he packs some power, and not only his hands, but his legs as well. Jordan Levitt seems like a guy who can't take those calf kicks, buddy. You better get out of there. Rogan's favorite, but Davel does have strong low leg calf kicks. And he finished, I believe it was Connor Matthews, also recently finished Isaac Dalgarian, which Dalgarian, that was the whole betting scandal fight that was a big story in the UFC. Yadir Davel had really nothing to do with that. He went out and did his job and imposed his will on Isaac Dalgarian and got the win. It was all Dalgarian's corner, team, and him that were really involved with those weird, odd lines and news coming out of his camp. Yadir Davel, I think, is a very solid prospect in the featherweight division. I think Jordan Levitt is a little bit underrated. I don't think he's as bad as people make him to seem. However, he's just low level on the feet. and he's pretty slow. And Del Valle is athletic and physical and can just impose his will very effectively against his opponents. I think this is a first-round finish, whether it be on the feet or on the ground, for the Cuban problem. Moving on up the card to Phil Rowe and Jean-Paul Labiasione. This is one of those I didn't know who to pick and was just going to go with my gut feeling. And my gut feeling is telling me Philip Rowe. I was going back and forth on this fight. Jean-Paul, he does have some decent power, decent fundamentals on the feet. I say he kind of lacks in the grappling. He's a bit stiff. He doesn't move around super well. Like, he's not unathletic, but his footwork and how he moves around is a bit stiff. Phil Rowe is going to have a significant reach and height advantage in this matchup. He's a vet of the game. He's one of those guys who keeps it close with Neil Magny, all right? I know he got schooled by Jake Matthews and then, what's his name? Angelusa had a comeback finish of him. He's a tough out, very good on the ground with his submissions, very technical there as well. And I see a big advantage for him on the ground against Jean-Paul. And on the feet, I don't think Jean-Paul will have much success landing any power or good strikes dealing with Philip Rowe, who, while he is not the best striker in the world, can get those hands going, can use his range to his benefit for sure. And I think this is going to be a classic veteran win out of Philip Rowe here in at UFC Fight Night Houston. God, I about had an autism attack. Ramiz Brahmaja taking on Puniello Soriano. This is one of those where I didn't really know who I was going to pick either. And now that I see it, this is screaming to me Punelli Soriano. A classic crack 'em, rock 'em, sock 'em robot guys on the feet. Punelli Soriano is. He cracks pretty hard. And also we've seen against Nikolai Veretennikov, who recently slimed out Nico Price. He did very well defending the grappling in that fight. And I wouldn't say Ramiz Brahmaja is that much of a better grappler or fighter than Nikolai Veretennikov. Now, the only thing that worries me is Punelli Soriano getting caught in a front choke by Ramiz Brahmaja, which is where majority of his wins have came from. But I was looking over his resume, and he seems overrated to me. While he is a solid grappler, lackluster on the feet, he doesn't necessarily impose his will against his opponents. It's usually just he can outclass you as a grappler. But Punelli Soriano has shown me very good grappling defense and takedown defense. And on the feet, I think he is a level above Ramiz for sure. And he hits hard. I like Punelli Soriano with a second round TKO finish. I think Ramiz will think he will just be able to bully Punelli Soriano. And if you watch Ramiz's fights, he either can bully his opponent, who is a lower level fighter, or he cannot. And he cannot against Punelli Soriano. So I think this is a second round TKO finish for Punelli Soriano, with Ramiz maybe having a little bit of success in the first round in the grappling, just using that initial energy. But also, I don't trust his cardio. And Soriano's a dog, and if need be, he can take this all the way through the third round and just outdog Ramiz. I think a lot of people kind of are like, Ramiz Brahmaja, look at this prospect. I think he's not that good. Kind of low level. I think Punelli's a level above. Give me Punelli Soriano, second round TKO. Alden Correa and Luis Gruel. This is kind of one of those I didn't know who to pick either. There's a lot of those on this card. But I'm going Alden Correa. And I'm going Alden Correa because he is fast on the feet. He is a much bigger flyweight than Luis Gruel, even though Gruel is a bit more dense. But Gruel, his last fight, which was at the UFC, what is it? The Mexico Day card, but it wasn't in Mexico, I don't think. Cannot remember his opponent's name right now. He had success. Like, he's not a bad fighter in the flyweight division at all. However, I think he lacks in speed and technical ability on the feet. He's somewhat physical. And where he won in that last fight, in what he ended up losing was a split decision, is those grappling exchanges and grinding up against his opponent, and making it a little bit dirty and such. But I think Alden Correa's footwork and boxing is very impressive for a young flyweight right now. And I like him to move around the octagon very fluently, tag up Gruel with a jab and straight shots, maybe working some leg kicks. And I'm going to go ahead, even though I haven't seen it necessarily from Correa, I'm going to trust that he won't let Gruel dominate him at any standpoint in the grappling. I'm going to trust that. And I like Correa's finishing ability as well, just coming off angles and, using his hands to land good shots against Gurriel. What does he have a reach advantage? I believe he inch and a half, which ain't a whole lot. Well, to me it's a lot. No, no homo, God, or whatever. Alden Correa, faster, better hands, finishing ability. Gurriel, solid, well-rounded fighter. I just don't trust his athletic ability, and I think he's very hittable and finishable against a guy like Correa, because Gurriel, he's pretty flat-footed, stocky. His face is there to be smashed by some good crisp boxing by Alden Correa. Moving on up the card to Ode Osborne, Alibi Idris. Ode Osborne, Alibi Idris. What are those? I didn't know who to pick either here. Now that I see it, this is screaming to me an Ode Osborne underperformance, somewhat close fight where he has some success on the feet but gives up a lot of moments in the grappling, and Alibi Idris steals this fight on the scorecards. Alibi he lost to Joseph Morales, who's a very good grappler and wrestler by submission. However, earlier in that fight, Alibi on the feet was pressuring Joseph, tuning him up somewhat, and making Joseph move around a lot on the back foot until he was able to get it to the ground and get that submission. Besides that finishing sequence of Joseph Morales, which was very impressive, and Joseph Morales has only shown us that who'd he beat last? Matt Schnell. Decent win. Is moving up in the flyweight world. Ode Osborne, he's a guy who will fight Steve Erceg close, but will lose to Alibi Idris coming off a loss in the Ultimate Fighter finale. That's just Ode Osborne. I could see him early in the first round having success on the feet, Alibi kind of keeping it decently close though, and then he's just going to give up shots. Alibi's going to grind up against the cage, get some trips, get him to the ground, outfit. Even though Ode's a big flyweight, I don't think that plays well for him here with Alibi. He's a very talented grappler. I think his grappling will be a huge advantage for Ode. I think Ode's grappling is too low level to beat very, very well-rounded guys in the flyweight division. That's why he matches up well with Steve Erceg, who's primarily just going to stand up and box with you and throw some leg kicks. And that's why he's able to keep it close with a guy like that. But a guy like Alibi, Kazakhstan, he can wrestle, man. He can grapple. And I think that'll be too much for Ode in the second and third round. I trust Alibi's cardio. I've seen him fight on The Ultimate Fighter. He doesn't get too gassed. And I think he's good enough on his feet to hold his own. I don't see him getting finished. I see him grinding this out to a closer decision and defeating Ode Osborne. Moving on up the card to the final fight of the prelims, we have Chitty, bang, bang, Njokuani taking on Carlos Leal. Going Chitty Njokuani. I think that reach advantage will be way too much of a problem for Carlos Leal, who is powerful, but not necessarily like a high-level striker. He's just powerful. And I think that reach of Njokuani will practically just offset anything Carlos Leal will be able to do to get good shots landed on Njokuani and pile up damage. And I think Njokuani, he's pretty powerful himself. Pretty solid takedown defense. He's going to be the bigger guy. I don't see Leal being able to use any grappling to sway the judges' scorecards or get it to the ground for a submission against Njokuani, even though I think Njokuani is a bit susceptible to submissions. But I like his ability to keep this on the feet, keep it at range, and just touch up Leal for 3 rounds. I like Chitty Njokuani by decision. Pretty clear, maybe with Leal stealing around in the grappling realm. Moving on up to the main card, we have Zachary Reese taking on Michel Pereira. I'm going Michel Pereira. Zach Reese is just not that great of a fighter. He doesn't have much power. His only wins are against low-level comp. Michel Pereira, even though he's recently lost to like a Boost Magomedov, he gasses early. I just think like you can't pick against him in this fight because skill-wise, he is a level, if not like 2 levels above Zachary Reese. And I think this is a great fight for Michel Pereira to go out in the first round and get a knockout finish. I'm going Michel Pereira first round KO. I think he'll be too athletic, too quick on his feet, and I think he should come out confident that he can get a first round finish against Zach Reese, and I think he does exactly that. Zach Reese, he's kind of a low-level guy. He's somewhat athletic, but very plotty. There seems like to be like a lot of those guys on this card. Like they're not like just refrigerators, you know, but they're not. They're flat-footed. They don't have bounce in the cage. They don't move around with like confidence or swagger. Michel Pereira does all that, whether or not you're clearly better than him, and he needs to have some gas in the reserve tank. and watch out for takedowns. I don't see Zach Reese just blast doubling Michel Pereira. I think Pereira's too fast. Way more tools in the tool bag on the feet, which is where I think this fight will take place and, of course, begins in the UFC Octagon on Saturday night. So I think this is Michel Pereira knockout. I could see this being a highlight reel knockout, and everyone's kind of back on the Pereira backflip train or whatever. But, yeah. And Zachary Reese, I don't trust his cardio. Even though we really haven't seen him go to the third round, he's sloppy as the fight goes on. And Pereira, as long as he has somewhat of some oxygen in his lungs, can throw some sharp, powerful, snappy shots at you. I like Michel Pereira in this fight. I also think he has the grappling advantage as well. Moving on up the card to Jacob Smith and Josiah Harrell. Shout out Josiah Harrell, man. Had like heart disease or something. Was supposed to fight JDM on short notice, I believe, when he fought... What is his name? He popped! What's his name? Obon Elliott beat him. And it was kind of close against JDM. I can't think of his name. Y'all know his name. But, he's a good fighter. And I hope we see him again after this fight. Because I'm taking Jacob Smith. Even though I wasn't too impressed with his last performance against Nico Price, he's just a more athletic guy. Hasn't had, like, scary health issues in the past few years. Good wrestling. Powerful on the feet. Not taking this fight on short notice. Josiah Harrell is. He's had a full training camp. Was training for a guy in Seong Kyung Ko, who I would have picked if that was still the fight, nonetheless. But a very tough opponent and a very good prospect Jacob Smith was preparing for. Now he's getting Josiah Harrell, who I still think is a solid fighter. But on short notice, I kind of think they're both similar fighters somewhat. And I think Jacob Smith is just a more athletic, more a talented guy. So I'm going to take Jacob Smith by decision. I think Harrell, man, after you go through all that type of stuff, you got to be a tough guy. I'm not picking Josiah Harrell to get finished. But Jacob Smith, I think he's a bit overrated. I think he would have got knocked out by Seong Kyung Ko if that was still the fight. However, I think he gets a pretty easy decision victory here against Josiah Harrell. Moving on up the card to Sergey Spivak and Ante Delea, training partner of the blind man, Tom Aspinall. Prayers for Tom Aspinall. We need you back, Aspinall. But we got Sergey Spivak. He's a great fighter. Taking on Ante Delea. Going Ante Delea here. Sergey Spivak was somewhat of an impressive heavyweight prospect for heavyweight. Okay? It's a different ballgame up there with these fatties. Sergey Spivak, though, not the fattiest of fatties. And Ante Delea has a pretty solid build. Alright? He's quick on the feet. Quick hands. I think he has great takedown defense. Not a slouch of a grappler. I would say Spivak is for sure the better offensive grappler. But I think he shoots one double, single leg takedown, goes for a trip against the cage. Ante stuffs it in the first round. And anytime that happens with Spivak, especially against someone with KO power on the feet and a good striker, a guy like Ante Delea, it's like Spivak's like, well, I already lost. And then he gets slimed out. That's exactly what's going to happen here. Ante Delea, first round KO. Spivak, very sloppy on the feet. Of course it can work against the blubbies of blubbers down in the heavyweight division, the oh whale. Ante Delea, though, I think he's more of in that range of like Waldo Cortez Acosta guys. You know, like right below Pavlovich and Volkov in the heavyweight division, tier-wise. And honestly, he looked great against Waldo until we had the eye poke situation. There was a huge adrenaline dump for Delea, who thought he finished Waldo. And then he comes out there and gets knocked out, which that adrenaline dump, physiologically, okay, that had to play a big problem, a big issue with him getting slimed out there afterwards. So, I haven't really sold any stock in Ante Delea. I think he is a perennial heavyweight contender. I think he's skilled and good. And you can see the emotion he fights with. He loves it. Spivak, he's a quitter to me. If he doesn't get his way, he's done. I think this is Ante Delea first round KO all day. Moving up the card to Dan Ige and Mel Quiziel Costa. Man, I didn't know who to pick. I was leaning Melky all week. Vitiligo bros. We got the same disease. It ain't no thing. He found the cure. Just a little bit left on the face and you'll get it gone, pal. That is a joke. Dan Ige, veteran of the game. Who's his last loss to? Was it Patricio Pitbull? Or did he fight someone else? I can't remember. Gosh dang. 19-10. I started leaning towards Ige. I'm like, he's the more crafty guy. But then I looked at his record. Recent losses and who he's won against recently. And I realized what I was seeing in those previous fights was kind of correct. Less volume. He knocked out Sean Woodson. Kind of an early stoppage, kind of not. But it was the only success he had in that fight was one explosive. Not even, like, he didn't really even knock him out. It was a very weird finish. Lost to Patricio Pitbull. Seems like he's either coming out of his prime or losing his step. He's been less active in the octagon. Like, when he fights, he's less active on his feet, throwing, volume, etc. Good, well-rounded fighter. These Eric Nicksick guys, though, I don't like picking them. And especially when they're not like a really high-level contender who's already proved themselves. But when they're kind of an Eric Nicksick guy that's kind of more towards the bottom of the rankings or right outside. So while I started to think I'm going to pick Ige, I'm going Melquizael Costa. I just think this fight could get away from Ige. I think first round goes to Costa, more activity, taking more chances, throwing more throwing more strikes. Honestly, Costa's people forget, man. Costa started off as a grappler and has improved rapidly on the feet. Athletic, powerful. I think we could see like Melky either have a really good performance here and put himself on the map and shoot up into the featherweight rankings, or at the bare minimum, this fight just kind of gets away from Ige, not throwing enough, being super tentative like he has recently. Eric Nicksick does that to a lot of people. Sean Strickland, who we'll talk about later, didn't look great against Paulo Costa. And even like that second DDP fight, he just didn't go. Seems like this is a story with these Eric Nicksick guys. And I think at bare minimum, this fight just gets away from Ige. And maybe he gets in the third round and he's like, oh crap, I got to go for it. And he wins the third, but he's already lost the first two just because he didn't go. And I also could see Melky just having a good performance and setting himself up for a big fight up in the future at featherweight. I like Costa here. It seems like he improves every fight. Big head kick knockout win over Morgan Charrier. It's a solid win. Coming up in competition a good amount, though, against Dan Ige. But I like the confidence Costa has. I think he has the grappling advantage here. And on the feet, technically wise, maybe Ige's a better technical boxer. But Costa's going to throw more weapons at him. He's going to throw hard. He's quick. He's not going to be tentative, I don't think. I like Costa here. I just don't think Ige, at this point in his career, and how tentative he's looked, I can't pick him to beat a young, up and hungry lion like Costa. So give me Melquizael Costa. I think this is going to be a good fight, though. Good fight. God, I don't know who to pick in this fight. Jeff Neal, a fellow metalcore lover, The Currents, Kublai Khan, Texas. Great bands. If you've seen that Twitter post, that interview with the Full Send MMA guy, taking on Uros Medic, a very wild card of a fighter here in the UFC. I was leaning Uros. Then I was leaning Neal. Then I was leaning Uros. Then I was leaning Neal. Let's talk about it. Uros looked very good in his past two fights, but then he has like a loss to Punelli Soriano earlier on in his career. Recently beat Muslim Salikov, and I forgot who it was before that. Someone solid, though. Looks good on the feet, powerful, sharp, somewhat disciplined, straight down the pipe shots on the front foot. Jeff Neal, spinning elbow KO loss to Carlos Prates. I believe that was his last fight, correct? Lost to Ian Gary, but he kept it pretty close with Ian Gary. And Ian Gary, I hate the cuck, but he's a good fighter. Uros Medic, can he beat a guy in Jeff Neal who kept it close with Ian Gary? But then again, Jeff Neal coming off a spinning elbow knockout, brutal knockout loss to Carlos Prates. Does Uros have the power and the speed to get this done in the first round? Jeff Neal, not the best head movement. I don't know who to pick here. I'm going to go with my gut and what I initially thought and not second guess myself. I'm going to Uros Medic first round KO. I think Jeff Neal will come out high shell, Not really, like he just does this. He doesn't really have like skilled head movement. He's pretty powerful, quick, athletic himself. But I think Uros will be able to set something up with a straight shot down the middle and just blast Jeff Neal. And I don't like him coming off that KO loss. He hasn't looked like phenomenal his past few outings. Uros is on the rise, coming off 2 knockout wins. I'm going to trust the freaking, what is he, Croatian, Serbian? What is he? Serbian. Shout out Jokic. Okay? They're one of the most athletic whites, guys, all right? Serbians, man. And I like Jeff Neal. I've always thought he's been underrated, but then again, I looked at his resume. He doesn't have that many crazy wins. It's kind of like he was in the bottom welterweight division. You keep it close with Ian Gary, and then you get knocked out by Carlos Prates. I'm going to go with my gut here. Uros Medic, first round KO. Jeff Neal swings some wild hooks sometimes. Maybe he catches him on a counter with just a nice straight right hand down the pipe. I'm going Uros Medic. And our main event. This one too, oh my gosh, this fight worries me, man. Because I'm going to pick Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. I have to pick him. He's a good friend of mine. All right, I'm a friend of the Mexicans. They love me. My Latino boys and girls, they love me. I'm honorary. I cook a mean carne asada. All right, Sean Strickland. All right, I'm racist too, man, but I can't pick you. I'm racist, homophobic, transphobic, xenophobic. I don't think he's that anti-Semitic. No, I didn't say that. I like Sean. I like Fluffy. I like both of them. I think this is going to be a phenomenal fight. I think it's going to be somewhat close. This worries me big time for Fluffy. We've seen him get hurt there before. And Sean Strickland, he can teep up the middle. But I just can't dissuade myself from taking Fluffy. And let me tell you why. Sean Strickland, Eric Nixick. He's too inactive. And I could see him early in this fight just getting out-volumed on the feet, even if Hernandez isn't having that much success in the grappling, if Sean Strickland's defensive grappling is as good as people are hyping it up to be, even though we haven't seen it all that much, or recently. I think Hernandez will be able to push a pace, and I don't think Hernandez will let Strickland just march him down like he does against a lot of his opponents when he has really good success. And Sean Strickland, just with how he's been fighting with so much less volume, so much less attacks, how many teeps is he really going to throw to the body? And Anthony, he's going to just keep coming forward and coming forward, shooting. His striking looked a lot better in his last fight against Roman Dolidze, even though it's nothing crazy. But it's sharp down the middle. I'm marching you down, and I'm hitting you in the face. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm not throwing any crazy hooks. I'm going to time some stuff, mix it in with the grappling, and make you hate this fight. And I just trust that strategy, that style, Anthony Hernandez's win streak against Sean Strickland, who in his previous fights has just had too much inactivity. Over a 5-round fight, this style of matchup, worst case scenario, Anthony Hernandez wins a close decision in my mind. That's the worst case scenario for an Anthony Fluffy Hernandez win. Even if Sean turns it up, but I don't see Sean coming out in that first round and meeting Anthony Hernandez head on, because Anthony Hernandez is going to come forward and pressure. I don't know if Sean Strickland will do that initially. And I don't like his chances on the back foot, as Hernandez just will spam takedowns, mix in the striking and grappling beautifully, pressure, and grind up against you. Pause. But then again, Sean Strickland could just have excellent grappling defense, and he is a very much better striker than Hernandez, I would say. And he's able to tune him up on the feet. However, I don't see it playing out like that. Not at this point. I think it's Fluffy Hernandez's time. And I think he beats Sean Strickland by decision. 4-1. 4 rounds to 1. Strickland steals the 4th or a 5th round when he finally realizes, like these Eric Nixick guys do, that he's down, been too inactive, haven't done enough, haven't pressed the pace, and they panic. And then they have to end up throwing everything in that last round. So I'm going with Anthony Hernandez, man. My good friend Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. How could I pick against you, brother? How? How on earth could I do that? That's it, boys and girls. That's today's video. That is the picks, predictions, and preview for UFC Fight Night in Houston, Texas. This is a solid card. I'm very excited to watch it. Very excited for the main event. I think it's going to be a great fight. And it's going to show a lot for what's coming in this UFC middleweight division dude, don't even get me started on Khamzat Chimaev. Like, literally no fight news. What a pathetic excuse joke of a champion. I'm from Chechnya, I'm a dentist. Like you're big, bad, and you don't even fight. And the flu almost kills you. Boo-hoo. I won't say that today. Let's end on a positive note. We're going undefeated on picks. If you like this video, if you watch it all the way through, please hit that thumbs up button for me. Subscribe to the channel, CNOL MMA. And if you agree or disagree with my picks for this fight night, let me know down in the comments. And as always, guys, thank you for watching, especially if you watched all the way through. I love you if you did that. And of course, Christ is King. I'll see you on the next one.